Hello guys, welcome to this lesson. We continue with the move bishop d3 in Najdorf, and now we'll see a very critical line for black, which is the move g6. I think together with e5, g6 is also possible, although I still believe e5 should be the main and the best move. So let's see what we're gonna see now. So g6, we saw already knight bd7, which is similar. And there I told you the move bishop b3, and if he goes g6, this just transposed to the main line like this. So let's say he goes g6, we go f3. I think it's important to start with this move. I would want to start with bishop b3 and after bishop g7 to go f3, but the problem of bishop b3 is that he can go knight g4, and this is already not clear. For example, here h6, bishop c1, queen b6. I think black managed to equalize here. For example, after the forced line, take, if knight d5, queen c6 is just equal, then e6 next. And if queen c8, this is not leading to anything, take. He has very nice compensation for the pawn thanks to all these weaknesses. Some queen c8, even the endgame is fine for black, so maybe white is a bit better, but not too much. I think black has good compensation. So this is the point. So after g6, I think it's important to start with f3. Actually, in this dragon system, it's very important to play with f3, bishop e3, because if we go with short castle, then black is completely fine. So that's why we need to go like this, f3, and this is the main position. Of course, the main move should be bishop g7, bishop e3, then knight bd7 or something, but here he has some extra options which are very interesting. For example, queen b6 is very interesting, and e5 as well. We'll see all of them. Also, we'll see the move knight c6, which is not so critical, but it's also possible. I think it's not so bad as well. The idea is that now we can actually play knight c6, like the line with 6 knight c6, where we take and play b3. Of course, this is a little bit better version for black, because in this position already we committed to this move f3, which is a little bit awkward. But even this is playable. I think we need 2 castle. I think even this is some small advantage. So if we want to skip the theory, we can take on c6 here. But after knight c6, I think the critical should be bishop e3. So if queen b6, a3 is important. We'll discuss this in big detail with the line with queen b6 here. So that's why this just transpose. Here instead of queen b6, he has an extra option to take and to play e5. This is a little bit strange together with the move g6. It seems that he just lost some kind of tempo there, but it's possible. It's not so bad. I think it's only some small advantage for white. Queen d2, he must go d5 immediately, because for example something like this is just better for white. This is better Najdorf. It's not obvious why he played g6. So after queen d2, he must open the position, take, c4. I think it's obvious that white keeps some small pressure because we have majority of pawns here. Also, he's a little bit late with the development. For example, if queen d7, rook d1, here b3, this gives white some good perspectives. And if he goes queen c6, it's very important queen a5. If queen c3, queen c7, but queen a5 is important to attack this pawn. So now, for example, with bishop c4 is very concrete line, but white keeps some advantage. Bishop d4 important, threatening this rook. He cannot take there because we just exchange and we win the rook. So after bishop d4 he must take. Now the only change is check. Everything is hanging, but he has, luckily enough, he has this move, rook f8. And this is maybe not over. I think black has some chances to make draw here, maybe not so bad chances, but in any case we are pawn up, and I don't see a reason to not play this position with white. I think there's good chance that white can win here. So after queen a5, rook d8 looks more logical. Rook d1, maybe castle b3 is also possible, similar. But I want to keep my king safe, so rook d1, castle b3. And I think this is a little bit more pleasant. Some bishop b4 might come. Maybe he will go f5, but then we have some pushing these pawns, maybe. I mean, white is a little bit better, that is obvious. So this is about knight c6. You can choose to play bishop e3 that position, or to take on c6, which is also playable. So anyway, knight c6 is not very popular move. So here after f3, another interesting move is e5. There are only a few games. But it's interesting, for example, this is the idea to play like Najdorf, normal Najdorf with bishop e3 and f3. Simply here the difference is that we played bishop d3 and he played g6. Honestly speaking, I don't know which one is in which favor, because g6 is also a decent move, and many times white is also playing bishop d3. So this is very similar to Najdorf with bishop e3, 5. So here we will go queen d2. There are only a few games in this position. So we want to go with long castle, but sometimes we can switch to short castle. We will see that. For example, rook c8 is a bit premature, because the point is after castle b5 here. I mean, the rook is not great there, because normally he wants to push b4, but now this pawn will be hanging always after knight d5. And if he goes knight b6, the typical move is a3. And I think this is very unpleasant. Our plan is very simple. Sometimes we want to go f4, sometimes just rook e1. And if he goes knight c4, this is always in white's favor. You should remember this structure. This is always good for white. White has amazing plan normally here. White goes king a1, knight a2. The idea is to protect this pawn very easy by rook b1 if necessary. And the knight from a2 first can jump to b4 in d5, but also is supporting this knight. And this structure is very bad because he needs to protect this pawn on d6 all the time, and black has no counterplay at all. In this square also d5 is very weak. He cannot move the knight because we will jump to d5. So this in general is very bad position. So rook c8 is not very accurate. I think queen c7 is also possible. Now we can go with long castle. Now it's different. I'll show you why a little bit later. For example, what is the difference if he goes b5 immediately? We will see a bit later. And after queen c7, castle b5, then we go king b1. This is once again very standard position, but normally the bishop is in f1, the pawn on g7. Now it's a little bit different. So now the point is that many times after bishop e7 we have this extra option to go bishop h6 to cut his king, which is very important idea. For example, if knight b6 we can already start pushing some pawns. Also it's very unpleasant. For example, if knight c4, this is very bad thanks to knight d4, very good move. f5 and white is just crashing. He cannot move the bishop because we take on f6 and knight d5. So white is recuperating the piece with big advantage. And if he goes bishop e7, rook f1, this is obviously very promising. He cannot castle because it's very dangerous, and I think white is doing very good here. So f4 is actually a very typical idea in this type of positions. So here we are moving after king b1 to the move b4, which is very critical, but now we go knight d5. If he takes with the knight, then we can take here queen e4. White is keeping serious initiative, maybe bishop e5 next, and black's king is still in big danger. And if he takes with the bishop, takes bishop g7, taking the pawn is not a good idea. We have different options, but the easiest one is bishop f2, threatening some bishop e4, rook e1, this pawn is also hanging. I think the engines are already suggesting white is much better. So after take bishop g7, it's interesting. So now the idea is after queen b4, he wants to take. Maybe this is not so clear, but I think still even after bishop d2, white is keeping some pressure, although it's a bit more complicated. But here after bishop g7, I like the move bishop here. Obviously if he takes, the problem is he never can castle. And if he castle immediately, then h4, h5 is coming very fast. White's position looks very, very promising. So I think the best move forward for black in this position is to go b5. Now the point is that if we want to go with long castle, now b4 it's very good for black. It's already different, and we cannot do much. If knight a4 and rook b8, this knight is a bit awkward. Even some queen c7, queen c6 potential is very strong idea. And if you go knight d5, this is just very unclear already. It's a different situation. Now he wants to castle, and it's just much better version for black. So that's why here we want to switch the plan. We want to go short castle. It's very awkward, but actually in this particular situation it seems to be very good. This is what the computer likes, and the plan is simple. We want to push some rook d1 f4 very fast. Sometimes we have this bishop h6 idea, and it's awkward position, but this g6 move, it seems to be a little bit of worries there for black because of these black squares. For example, he has plenty of moves here, bishop b7 or I don't know, b4 and b6. If b4, for example, now we want to keep it slow, knight a4, attacking this pawn. Rook b8 now is not the same, we can even open the position by c3. So let's say he goes d5, now we take here. Now very important to take in bishop c4. Take, and this is also very unpleasant. He cannot castle now, even sometimes the end games are very unpleasant. Some knight to c5 maybe. White's position is very promising once more. So this is about b4. If he goes knight b6, it's logical. Now we go here. In this position we already discussed that this structure is not good. Now the king is on the other side, but still we go knight c1, knight 2, controlling the square. This pawn is very bad. I think in general this structure is not good for black, unless he has something concrete, but now he doesn't have. If he's managed to play d5, it will be good, but he never can do it. And if he goes queen, bishop e7 here, now we go bishop h6, the typical move, cutting the king, preventing castle. And this is very unpleasant thanks to this bishop h6 idea. Black is a little bit stuck. He cannot do short castle and he has some troubles here. Instead of knight b6, another option was to go queen c7, now a3, preventing b4, and still this is very unpleasant idea. On the other hand, he doesn't want to bring the bishop here, because after some rook d1, eventually bishop e2, this pawn it will be hanging. So black has serious problems with his king. Here another option was bishop e7 immediately, so now here a4 is an option, but it's not clear after b4. This is very unclear position. Here knight c5, probably black is fine, although still very complicated. But after bishop e7, of course, I like bishop h6 move. The move just to cut the king before. So now what to do? Now we have some options. We can go knight e2 or knight a4, very interesting. Or also knight d5. I mean, everything is interesting. For example, this is the most sharp way to play. The position is obviously not clear, but white has good options. Maybe a4 is coming, rook e1. We have some compensation. But this is the most tricky one. Probably we have easiest ways. For example, knight a4 is possible. c3. Here, knight h5, trying maybe to play g5 to take this bishop maybe by rook g8, rook g6. So now we must go back, castle. g5 looks tempting, but it's not so great. I mean, this is not so bad because this knight is nice, but it's not doing much. So here after bishop e3 castle, let's say we go rook d1. Here, white still keeps some pressure. It's not so big, but we have some ideas like bishop b6 maybe. So black needs to be careful here. But in my opinion, the easiest way probably is knight e2 here. And now he must go bishop f8 sooner or later because he needs to remove this bishop. We go here. White still keeps a lot of initiative. Rook g8. Maybe trying to push g5 to take our queen. So that's why we want to go back here. And here I think black still has some problems. This bishop is quite unpleasant. The king is a bit weak. Maybe some f4 in the future might come. It's not obvious, of course, after a4 we must go knight a1. Of course, it's not obvious position. It's not so clear, but white definitely keeps some pressure. This is obvious. So this is about this this e5. I think is interesting for black, but also from white point of view, white definitely has some pressure. I mean, it's not so simple. So, and also g6 together with e5, it looks a little bit strange anyway. So here we're moving to another move, which is queen b6. I think this is actually very promising, very interesting for black. Although still, I think black should be a bit more careful. And now the idea is to remove the knight and just to play like this, maybe knight bd7 or knight c6. Black is okay. But the whole point here is to go a3, very important. He cannot take, of course, because of bishop b5. Knight c6. If knight bd7 looks very awkward. Together with queen b6 doesn't make sense. Now we go bishop c4, protecting the knight. Here, if queen c7, we just go here, bishop e3. Eventually queen d2, pushing some pawns, castle. White is just having very good dragon. And if he goes knight c5, we go castle short. Very important. This is very critical line, but it looks very promising. Bishop e3, sacrificing a piece. And black's position looks like it's about to collapse. Of course, it's not clear, but it's very difficult from the practical point of view. For example, queen c7, knight b3, just clear advantage. E d4 here. This is just bad. We are recuperating the piece, and black has a lot of weaknesses. Eventually, we want to go rook b1, even a4, just to fixing this pawn. I think black is definitely worse. So the main option here is knight cd7, trying to use this pin. So now if knight d5, this is not clear. This is definitely very unclear. But the whole point is, of course, we don't want to go back, we just want to open more files, even though we're giving up the knight. So takes, if queen c7, this is just transposition. So let's say he starts with this, queen c7 and bishop b3 important. Queen e2 is a move, threatening e5, but black is more or less fine by giving up the piece, and maybe slightly better for white, but rook e8 is coming and it's not so clear. So after queen c7, I prefer to keep the tension, bishop b3 here. If bishop e7, then queen d2 is very strong, bringing the rook, and white is having only one pawn for the piece, but black's piece is very passive. e5 is coming very fast. Here now f5 even, with some queen h6 ideas. Here threatening some bishop f6, knight d5, or queen h6, too many threats. Probably the best move is here, but even queen g5 now. The angels are suggesting that this position is extremely difficult for black. And if he goes bishop g7, which is a bit more logical, giving up this piece back, but now the problem is with the bishop on b3, we had the same position with queen on e2, bishop c4, but now the bishop is on b3, which is better. Of course, the most logical way here is h3 to prevent some jumps, and just to play this position, I think white has slightly better chances, that's obvious. But in the only one game here, in the correspondence game, Misericordia Canizares Squadra, played by email 2020, white played the computer move, which is rook f2, very difficult but very interesting move. If bishop e6, f5 is the idea. So he must go here, take here. So this was the game, actually intended in a draw, but it seems that white is slightly better with all this control here, some weaknesses. Rook is coming to d1, the other to d2 maybe. Definitely white is pressing, this is obvious. So this about knight bd7 is a bit strange. So the main idea is knight c6 to remove this knight. And now bishop e3, still keeping on. He cannot take because this is obviously bad. If he takes, we're winning the queen. So bishop e3, now the idea is c5 to use this pin, knight f5. It's very forcing line here. We must go knight g3. It's a little bit awkward, this square for the knight, but we don't have better option. Knight h6, d5, it's very sharp. This knight is not doing much. I think knight g3 is the best. And this is kind of the critical position for this queen b6. Probably bishop g7 is possible. It's similar to bishop e6. Bishop e6 was played more here, but I think they just transpose one to each other. For example, after bishop e6, anyway, we start with this move, provoking h5, and this just transposed to the main line that we will see a bit later. And if he doesn't want to transpose, if he goes d5 here, then the position is very promising for white. We take, go h5, he must go rook g8 here. It's very forcing, queen d2. If castle, we go bishop b6. Maybe he can sacrifice exchange, but I don't think it's enough. So the best is f5, we go here, queen f2, threatening bishop b6. Bishop b4, more or less the only move to create some counterplay. Now we have this amazing king d2. The game continues, but this bishop b6 threat is too strong. And I think, I believe one of the lines is going like this. Here, queen d5, we take, and then king c1. It's not clear yet, but definitely the engines are giving some advantage already. And it looks more promising for white. I mean, black needs to find a lot of moves here. So this is about d5. So if he goes h5, just transposes. So let's say here he goes bishop g7, queen d2, this is similar, but I think it's very unclear. I think it's better to start with this h4, just to provoke h5. So once again he can play without h5, he can play d5 now, but this is very similar. So now we go knight e4, f5, and very important knight c5. If knight c3, this is not clear. But knight c5 is very promising. We want simply to go queen e2, long castle, or bishop c4. So he must play very concrete, knight d4, b4, very important to keep this knight. So now I think by very accurate play, black is close to equalize, but all these moves are just only moves, like 10 in a row, and very difficult ones. He definitely needs to know all this. So for example, b6 is knight a4 attacking this pawn. So the best move is e4, take, and queen c4, which is already very difficult. Queen d2 is the best. If queen d3, this is more or less equalizing, check important. This is just not clear. And if you go king e2, black has very good bishops, probably enough to make a draw here. But here, of course, after queen c4, the best try is queen d2. So now bishop g4 is the best move, which is extremely difficult. Much more logical is to take there, but then we have this position where black is exchange up, but his king is so weak. Some rook e1 is coming, bishop b3, and it's very, very dangerous. So the best is bishop here, bishop d3. Another move is queen d3 now, but this seems to be very, very unclear as well. So I think the best is bishop d3, knight c2 now, here castle, and still white has fantastic compensation. This pawn is also hanging. Maybe with accurate play black can survive here, but I think the position is still very promising for white. I mean, we don't risk much, we want to take this pawn and to have very nice activity of our pieces. So this is the option d5, it's interesting but it's dangerous. Much more logical just to prevent all these tricks to play h5, queen d2, bishop e6. But now, of course, the point of all this to provoke h5 is that we have this square for our bishop. So actually we are going to play bishop g5 here. Castle b5, knight d5, rook b8 is not clear. This is very double edge. Here and then b4, and the position is crazy. I think black is not worse objectively. And it's very, very sharp. White is also risking. So that's why I think we need to go bishop g5. Queen a5 looks very logical to go away from this pin. If he goes b5, for example, the problem is that we can play a4 already, and black's position is very dangerous. If he takes, this is clearly in white's favor. All white's pieces are very active, and if he goes b4, this is definitely in white's favor. Take here. We will take one pawn, and not objectively, not so clear, but we have this passed pawn, we have pawn up, and definitely black needs to be careful. So that's why I think the best way is queen a5. We go castle, rook c8. b5 is another option, but then we go for this endgame, 95. Take. He must take with a bishop. And just to play, because if he takes on d5, then here we can simply go bishop g6 or bishop b5. White is just much better. So he needs to take like this, knight a5, b4 very important. Take here. And this is very, very bad. He has these weaknesses. Also, these pawns are very promising in the end game. I think white is clearly better. So after castle, let's say he goes rook c8 first, king b1 now, b5, bishop e2. Losing a tempi, but a very important move. The point is after b4 to go knight d5. And this is just probably winning for white. So that's why he needs to go castle. Now we go for the end game. Take, take. So now b4 is not the same because he will take with the rook on c4. So we go b3, just restricting this knight. And after knight b7 going b4. Even going for c4, rook c2. The position is very promising thanks to this pawn. This knight is very weak and this pawn on a6. I think objectively it's only slightly better, but practically it seems much more. I think it's very difficult for black here. So this is about how this line with queen b6. I think it's interesting objectively, but still if white knows what to do, black has some problems. So after f3 we're moving to the main move here. Knight bd7 is the best. I mean, playing like this is just bad dragon. b5 is also bad thanks to a4, and this is very bad position. If here, we already discussed similar stuff in the dragon section, and these positions we saw many times. White is just much better. And if he takes ba4, this is also very bad. We already discussed something similar stuff in the previous lessons. So here if he goes with knight c6, I also don't like it. This dragon is not so great. The inclusion of bishop g3 and a6 doesn't favor black. For example, if castle, we just go castle and start pushing these pawns. If he goes knight e5, bishop e2 is important, b5. If queen c7, we want to play here already, bishop h6 is similar. And if he goes b5, anyway, we go here, take castle, rook e1. White has serious initiative, some f4 might come next. And this typical idea doesn't work so great, because here we will give up the pawn, knight b3. Sorry, in this sorry about that. So in this position, we discussed that this is not enough, because after knight b3, white is just better. We can play the end game, and black doesn't have enough compensation. So here another option is if castle, of course. If d5, we have many good moves here. We can take and play bishop h6. This is also better for white. But also we can simply take here. And this is also very promising. Long castle next, and white's position is very, very promising. So that's why definitely after bishop b3 he must go knight bd7. And this is very similar to this line that we saw in the previous lessons. I will show you quickly. It was this with dragon, where he plays a6 and then knight bd7. Now we played bishop d3 already. We committed to that, but I think it's still very good for white. So this is what we're gonna see now. Queen d2. With the bishop on f1 was better, because we had the option to play bishop e2 and it was different. Now it's a bit different, but it's still good for white. b5. For example, this is a bit slow. Now we go castle. b5 always met by a4. And after castle, this is just very promising, because this pawn on h5 is a bit awkward now. You have even some options by playing king h1, f4, f5 also. I mean, this h5 is not great here. And if he goes, for example, queen c7 first, now the point is that if g4 or castle, it's possible, but I think here the interesting way to play is a4 to prevent b5 now. And now it seems to be very good for white. For example, if b6, this is just better. He has to go with long castle, and then this position is very promising. Some king b1 next. Black's position is very passive. This bishop is just aiming these pawns. And after a4, if he goes knight e5 here, now we can keep the bishop. The point is after bishop d7 to go g4, start pushing some pawns. He has no counterplay on the other side. And if he goes bishop e6, we want to go with short castle, take. And this is also very promising with the pair of bishops, control this square. I mean, this weakness also. White is definitely better. So this positional way to play is very promising. So that's why here he must go b5 already, but of course the problem is a4. Big theory, actually, there are a lot of games with this position. But I think this is not clear. I think it's what black wants. So that's why here we want to play e4, because we didn't castle yet. This is the whole point. Obviously this line already we saw. I mean, this is just bad. If bishop b7, c4, followed by b4, short castle. And if he goes d5, it's just not enough. We take here. The point is that after bishop d4, bishop b4 is winning the material back. And if he goes castle, this is very, very promising. h4. Castle h5. White is just much better. Even the end game is better, because we take some knight b6. I mean, white is just better. And after a4, if he goes b4, this is the critical line. Knight a2, d5, he must go this way. Because if he goes a5, once again this structure is very, very bad. We already spoke many times about this position. And after knight a2, if he goes d5, I think this is the critical line. Actually, many years ago I checked this for black, and I thought this is an interesting way to play. But now it seems to me that it's only one-sided, and black needs to know all this to remember everything, and still black will be pawned down. I think the best way is to take on d5, because this is not so clear. Now this pawn is very weak. So that's why I think we need to take and give up this bishop. He must take on e3. He doesn't want to take there, because to keep the bishop on e3 is not a good idea. White is just clearly pawn up. And knight e5 is similar, but I think this is just better. We have pawn up. So the whole idea is that he wants to exchange this bishop. Now he has this pair of bishops. Very strong, this one. Definitely black has compensation. This is out of question, but on the other hand, white is pawn up, and it's not so simple for black as well. Queen b6 is a mistake. After c3, the queen is not optimally placed here. Knight c5 is the move that we saw in the practice. There are 2 correspondence games here. Here maybe interesting is queen c7 as well. If castle bishop b7, I think bishop b4 is the best in c3. It's the best try. Take. If castles, then we want to play into a5, very important to not allow black to play a5. And now these knights are very stable. And after bishop b4 take here, if knight d5, queen d6, this is very sharp. Our king is still in the center. So that's why here after castle we must go here, a5, castle. Still some hope for black, he has compensation, but we are very solid with these knights. And definitely he needs to be careful, I mean he just pawn down. So maybe with accurate play he somehow equalizes, but I think it's very difficult in a practical point of view. So let's say after queen e3, knight c5, it's a bit more logical. We go c3. Here it must be said that this is very interesting. I think leads to equality, but it's very interesting line. I'll show you because it's very tempting. It's very concrete. After he takes, we sacrifice a piece. And now he has only moves. Like 10 only moves in a row. Queen b6 is only move. This is only move. And this is only move. Now e5 is only move because if castle, knight e7. If not, rook e7 is coming. Here only move, rook e5, king e8. Now we have many options. For example, if rook e7, this is unclear. If rook e4, this is leading to some kind of draw. And probably this is drawish endgame, more or less. Another option is maybe rook e6. But this is also only a draw. If you want to keep the game by b3, then f6 is important here. This also leads to a draw. Take king g7 important. Still it's very difficult. He has only moves king g7, king h6 here, trying to enter. If rook e4, rook e2. And if king d2, he still keep going with checks and then rook e8. I think it should be a draw, but it's still not easy for black. So castle is definitely interesting option, but I think c3 objectively is better. Knight d3. If here doesn't change much. So I think the best is to take queen c7, castle. So in that correspondence game played in 2018 in the game Van Leeuwen Mauritsson, white played f4, which I don't think is the best. After take, if you take with the queen, then rook d8 very fast, so you must take with the pawn. And black actually gained a lot of compensation. Eventually the game finished in a draw, but we have clear weaknesses. So that's why here I think the best try is simply to go rook e1. I think white is a little bit better. The point is knight e5 just to block these knights. We'll just pawn up. Here, e4. I think it's not so clear objectively, but he has compensation thanks to the pair of bishops. But also we have very nicely placed knights and we're pawn up. We have 3 against 1 here, so I think potentially this can be very dangerous for black. In a practical game it will be not easy for sure. So this is about this line with g6. I think it's interesting. Everything with queen b6, e5 or bishop 7, but always white is keeping some pressure. I mean, always he needs to be more careful. So thank you for watching this lesson, guys, and see you in the next ones. Thank you.